The sound didn't belong there. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. Just a faint disturbance in the silence, like something had shifted when nothing should have. For a brief moment, my hands froze above the keyboard before my mind could catch up and ask why. That night was supposed to be simple. A few years back, I had just started a new job, something bigger, better than anything I'd had before. Same kind of work, but this time it actually felt like progress. New office, new people, better pay, everything lined up the way you hope it does when life finally gives you a break. I walked in that first day feeling confident, ready, and honestly, everything went too well. No problems, no confusion, no awkward moments. By the end of the day, I felt ahead of where I should be, and maybe that's exactly why I made the decision I did. I stayed. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to prove something to myself, maybe, or to people who weren't even there to notice. I told myself I'd just finish a few extra tasks, learn the system better, settle in faster. 1 hour turned into 2, and by the time I checked the clock again, it was already past 6. The office had emptied out without me even noticing. Conversations were gone, phones silent, even the faint background noise of people moving around had disappeared. It felt still, but not in a peaceful way. More like the building had gone quiet on purpose. I kept working anyway, trying to ignore it, focusing on my screen, on the small comfort of something normal. Time kept slipping by as the lights above dimmed automatically, leaving parts of the office in shadow. Cubicles stretched around me like rows of hollow shapes, each one darker than the last. By the time it was close to 9, I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes, and that's when I heard it again. A soft sound somewhere behind me. I didn't turn right away. I told myself what people always do in moments like that. It's nothing, old building, air system, something settling in the walls. But deep down, something didn't agree because the sound hadn't felt random. It had felt placed. Slowly, I turned in my chair, scanning the empty desks. Nothing moved, nothing stood out. Just shadows and silence staring back like they had always been there. I exhaled quietly, turned back to my screen, and forced myself to focus. But a few minutes later, it happened again. This time closer. Not behind me, but off to the side, like something had changed position. And that's when the thought hit me, clear and cold. I wasn't alone. My fingers rested on the keyboard, unmoving now. The work didn't matter anymore. Every small noise, the hum of the lights, the faint buzz of electricity felt sharper, louder. I listened carefully, waiting, because now the silence didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. When I finally shut down my computer, every sound in that office felt amplified. My breathing felt out of place, like I didn't belong there anymore. I packed my bag slowly, trying to ignore the tight pressure building in my chest, convincing myself it was just a long day in a new place. But before leaving, I decided to walk through the office one last time, just to clear my head. The moment I stepped into the hallway, my shoe touched the floor and I heard it. Footsteps, not imagined, not distant, real, slow, steady, somewhere deeper inside the office. I stopped breathing for a second. They weren't right next to me. I started moving forward carefully, placing each step with intention, trying not to make a sound as my eyes adjusted to the dim lighting. Then something shifted ahead, slightly to the right. A figure moved, and I froze instantly.
"Hello?"
I called out, my voice sharper than expected, cutting clean through the silence. For a split second, nothing happened. Then a man stepped out from between 2 cubicles. He wore a dark coat and stood unnaturally still, like he had been caught mid-action. The moment he saw me, he turned quickly, too quickly, like I wasn't supposed to be there. We stared at each other in silence until he finally spoke. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low, slightly off. I didn't know anyone else was here. Something about that sentence didn't sit right. I couldn't explain it, but it felt wrong. "I just started today," I replied, steadying my voice. "What about you?" He hesitated. Just for a second, barely noticeable, but enough. "I work here," he said. "Just stayed late." It sounded normal, but nothing about him felt normal. His eyes wouldn't stay still. They kept shifting past me, around me, like he was checking something behind me instead of focusing on the conversation. I tried to place his face. Nothing. I had met most of the team earlier that day, and his face wasn't one of them. Still, it was my first day. Maybe I missed him. Maybe a different department, a different shift. That's what I told myself. I was just finishing up too, I said. He nodded slowly and silence returned, heavier this time, like the conversation had ended too early, like something else should have been said but wasn't. Standing there under dim lights, I couldn't shake the feeling that one of us didn't belong there. I just didn't know which one. What still doesn't make sense is how normal everything felt in the final moments. He broke the silence first, saying he was heading out, already shifting like he didn't want to stay any longer. I nodded, said the same, and without another word, we started walking side by side through rows of dark cubicles and empty desks. The lights flickered just enough to make everything feel slightly unreal, our footsteps echoing in sync, the only sound in the building. No voices, no movement, just the two of us heading toward the exit like it was completely normal. We pushed through the main door and stepped outside. Cold air hit instantly. The parking lot stretched wide and empty behind the building. I slowed down without realizing it, something feeling off as I scanned the area again. One car, mine, that was it. No other vehicles, nothing to suggest anyone else had been there, but he was still walking beside me. I turned slightly, trying to keep my voice casual. "Where's your car?" He didn't look at me. "I walked," he said. The answer came too quickly, too clean, hanging strangely in the air. Then, without another word, he stopped, turned, and walked away, fast. Not toward the street, not toward any visible exit, but toward the darkest side of the lot where shadows swallowed everything and a narrow path led behind the building. I stood there, watching him. The way he moved didn't feel like someone going home. It felt like someone leaving before they were caught. Within seconds, he disappeared into the darkness. Gone. Just like that. I stayed there longer than I should have, staring at the spot, waiting for him to come back. He didn't. So I got into my car, locked the doors immediately, and drove away, telling myself it was nothing. Just a strange encounter, a weird first day. But the next morning proved me wrong. The moment I walked into the office, something felt off. People weren't working. They were gathered in small groups, whispering, tension filling the air. My manager called me in, and the question started immediately. What time did I leave? Was I alone? Did I see anyone? That's when my stomach dropped. They told me important files had been taken overnight, not misplaced, not lost, stolen, and I was the last person in the building. I told them everything. Staying late, the noises, the footsteps, and the man. The room went silent when I finished. No one interrupted. No one questioned me until someone finally said it. "He doesn't work here." The same cold feeling from the night before crept back into my chest as they exchanged looks. He used to, but he was fired months ago. Somehow, he had gotten back inside, planned it, waited for the building to empty, waited for the right moment, and then it hit me hard. Because while he thought he had the place to himself, while he moved through the office, doing whatever he came there to do, he had no idea that someone else was still inside, watching, listening, and just as confused about him as he should have been about me. The first thing that felt wrong wasn't the sound, it was the silence. Not the normal kind you expect in an empty school at night, but something heavier, thicker, like the entire building was holding its breath, waiting. I almost turned back right there, but I didn't. Back in 2022, I had just taken a night job as a custodian at a high school. Nothing special, just me, a mop, and a checklist to finish before sunrise. I'd already trained a few nights with a guy named Harris, so I knew the routine: clean classrooms, wipe desks, leave the bathrooms for last. Easy money. At least, that's what I believed that first night alone. Harris stayed for a bit, walked me through a few final details, then casually told me I'd be fine before heading out. The door shut behind him, and just like that, the entire building belonged to me. The lighting didn't help. Half the lights only flicked on when I passed beneath them, humming softly before dying out seconds later. It felt like I was being followed by light and swallowed by darkness. Still, I kept working, head down, trying not to overthink it. For about an hour, everything stayed normal. Then I heard it, footsteps, not loud, not rushed, just steady, controlled, like someone walking with purpose. I froze instantly. The sound wasn't right next to me, but it was close enough to feel. It came from just beyond the corner ahead. Step, step, step. I called out, my voice stretching down the hallway and fading into nothing. The footsteps stopped immediately. Silence took over again. Too perfect, too complete. I waited, listening hard for anything, a reply, movement, even a mistake. Nothing came. Slowly, I moved toward the corner, every step louder than it should have been. I turned to just a long hallway, lined with lockers and closed classroom doors. No movement, no one there. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding and muttered something about pipes or the building settling, but even I didn't believe it. Still, I forced myself to keep working. Though the tension never left my shoulders, not long after, I reached the far end of the school, a section Harris had barely mentioned. As I stepped into the hallway, the lights began turning on one by one. Click, then another. Click, then another. Each one lit just enough space ahead of me, but never the full length. And that's when I noticed it. The last stretch of the hallway remained completely dark. No flicker. No hum. Just darkness. I stopped. For a moment, I thought about turning back, leaving it for later. But something about it pulled me forward. As I walked closer, the lights behind me began shutting off one by one. Click, 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 until only the light above me remained. And ahead of me, nothing but darkness. Then I heard it again, not behind me this time, right in front of me. One single step from inside the dark, I froze. My body refused to move, my mind scrambling for anything logical, anything that made sense, but nothing did. Because this time, I wasn't the one walking. Later, I noticed something even worse. The lights in another hallway were already on before I even stepped inside. I hadn't touched a switch. I hadn't even been there yet. It looked like someone had just walked through seconds before me. That thought crept in slowly, cold and unwelcome. What if someone had been here the whole time and I just hadn't crossed their path yet? I tried to ignore it and kept working, telling myself to just finish the shift. For a while, everything stayed quiet. Then the footsteps came back, clearer this time, closer. Not sneaking, not rushing, just walking like they knew exactly where they were going. And then a laugh low, uneven, broken. It didn't sound natural. It didn't sound human in the way it should. It sounded like someone trying to remember how to laugh. A chill ran straight through me, every instinct screaming not to move. But I couldn't stay frozen forever. The footsteps stopped, then changed direction, and started coming toward me. Slow, deliberate. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I didn't think about the job anymore. I just wanted out. But just as suddenly as it started, the sound drifted away again, fading into silence. I stood there, barely breathing, until the realization hit me hard. There was someone else in the building. I could have left. I should have left. But I didn't. Instead, I made the worst decision possible. I went after it. I called out, forcing confidence into my voice, moving faster through the halls, checking corners, chasing footsteps that always stayed just out of reach. Minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 20. I lost track. Every time I got close, the sound would shift, pulling me deeper, like I was being led somewhere on purpose. And then I went back to where I'd left my supplies. Everything was wrong. My cart was tipped over, bottles scattered, the mop thrown into the middle of the hallway. I knew I hadn't left it like that. A heavy realization settled in while I had been searching, calling out, chasing footsteps. Something had come behind me, touched my things, watched me. After that, the fear wasn't distant anymore. It was real, solid, right in front of me. I moved closer to the entrance, staying under the brightest lights, trying to convince myself I could finish. For a while, nothing happened. Then it came back behind me, closer than ever. That same broken laugh, but louder now. I spun around, and for a fraction of a second I saw it. A human-shaped figure turning the corner at the end of the hallway. Gone before my mind could process it. No face. No details. Just enough to know it was real. That moment broke me. I stopped moving through the school completely, stayed near the entrance, back against the wall, refusing to chase anything again. The building went silent after that, but the feeling never left. Not for a second. By morning, I already knew I wasn't coming back. When the next custodian, Daniel, arrived, I told him everything. They checked the entire school, every hallway, every room, every locked door, nothing, no signs, no entry, no exit. Like whatever had been there had never existed. I quit that same day, and even now, years later, there's one thing I can't shake. I never found out who was following me that night, or why it felt like they were enjoying it.